Hey guys, welcome to another lesson. This is an extended learning off of our ecosystem lesson. It is titled Save the Redwoods. So we're going to talk about the Redwood Forest, some interesting facts, and learn how we can help. Our learning objective, learn about the Redwoods, know where they are located, and understand how we can help. Beautiful pictures here in the Redwood Forest. First, let's have a funny video. Before we dive in, let's watch a cute little cat video. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that little silly video. Back to the Redwoods. Okay, so what are the Redwoods? So the Redwoods are a string of forests in Northern California. A majority of the Redwood Forest is in Humboldt County. And Redwoods is a national and state park. Okay. So I have this picture of California. And we are somewhere around here, the Inland Empire. And all the way up here is Humboldt County, Northern California. So this is the majority where the Redwood Forest is, on the coast. Okay. I have some nice pictures here. Redwoods can be up to 300 feet tall. Large, giant sequoias, beautiful trees, many, many, many years old. I have a video for us to watch, so let's watch this wonderful video about a man doing his part to help plant more beautiful, beautiful trees in the redwoods.
Well, people have asked me, what's it like for you, David, what's it like when you walk through one of these groves of old growth redwoods? By far, hands down, the most spiritual, profound, conscious altering, in a positive way, experience for me is every single time I walk through a redwood forest. Now, I can't say that I understand all of it, but I've been given some insights that help the average person understand why they're critically important. It's the most marvelous experience. I can get it nowhere else on this planet that I've found. I also feel tremendous sorrow that 95% of them were killed. And we didn't even know what they do to anchor our ability as human beings to be able to live on this planet. We killed them. That's the bad news. It's my job when I walk through there to yell out to those trees, to hold those trees and say, I'm here to do everything in my power on earth to bring in all the human beings and all the help that I can to put this back, to put back every single tree that was cut down and killed. That's what it's like for me. And you know what? I'm going to do it.
The redwood trees of California are probably the oldest of living things. The redwoods that grow along the coast live to be 2,000 years old. So down they come, some of the world's oldest, biggest, and tallest trees. Trees that grow over 350 feet high. Their history goes back millions of years to the time of the dinosaurs. But when we look at stacks of redwood lumber, we may well be reminded of its ancient history. For this is lumber from a species of tree that has survived for millions of years. Trees that live to be 2,000 and 4,000 years old. The tallest, biggest, oldest trees in the world.
We can rebuild old growth forests utilizing the genetics of the largest, oldest, strongest, proven through the test of time giants that will help us turn this scourge that we face, this threat, climate change, around. The redwoods are nothing more than a model. Here we have one of the very top, fastest growing species of trees, 10 foot a year. And it's something that's growing very, very quickly. Phytoremediates, or means pull out of the air, tremendous amounts of excess CO2. Just an average coast redwood is 1,000 tons. 1,000 tons. That's a lot of carbon. As we're losing the vast majority of our old growth trees on this planet, the genes of those old growth trees need to be preserved, like Noah's Ark, and utilizing them to reforest the planet when we really need it. So we set off on that quest, and we did it. We did find the 20 largest living coast redwoods in this 100-mile corridor from just over Oregon down here. We kept running into these stumps over and over and over again. These trees are dead and gone. There's nothing you can do. It's a tragedy, but gosh, we just have to learn to live with it till we learn about these right here, basal sprouts. Okay, this tree is not dead. It's a long ways from dead. In fact, it's almost impossible to kill a redwood. You can burn them like they have here. They burnt this out trying to get rid of it. You cut them down, burn them 140 years ago, throw everything at it in the world, and you can't kill it. But nobody recognized that the tree lives on, because when you threaten its life, from its roots, it throws out things called basal sprouts. So the exact genetic fingerprint of this stump and any other stump in this whole region is in the basal sprouts. I have a real affinity for these stumps because I went to the hospital and died of renal failure, legally died of renal failure.
Well, when I first started out in photography, I did not have a clue as to how to use a strobe, a modifier, and how to really...
But a number of minutes later, like these stumps that were given up for dead, like I was given up for dead, surprise, surprise, I came back to life. So we went and found the biggest stumps. Right here, we found groves of redwoods that are 30 foot plus in diameter. It's incredible. 30 foot across. That's the width of most people's ranch type house. So Jake goes, hey Dad, wouldn't it be cool if we could bring this back to life? So we took some cuttings off of this. We snipped some cuttings. Jake did. And we flew them back overnight back to Coatlish, Michigan, and tried to micropropagate these things. And sure as the world, it worked.
Our micropropagation and tissue culture lab, the main goals for that was basically research and development on how to make 1 million trees to send everywhere. What this is taking very small pieces off of very small cuttings and then exponentially multiplying them through jars and reproduction hormones. So you could imagine if we use the multiplication hormones, you're going to grow many tops out of one top. Then you take those pieces, then divide those. So then it becomes exponential. So imagine large warehouses with this tissue culture going on. I mean, we could grow millions and millions and millions of trees. The Millark family's been in the tree business for over 4 generations, so we've been in this for a long time. We're not going anywhere. This is just kind of taking it into the next millennia, almost making it hip again and starting from the very beginning. We used to purchase some trees and we used to go collect some native trees, but now we're literally making trees.
In the United States, 98% of our old growth forests have been cut down. In California, where these grow, the only range in the world of these, 96% of all coast redwoods have been cut down. There's only 4% left. Maybe the genetics of this ancient giant tree might be valuable. Maybe we should keep a few. As most people know, California is going through a 1,000-year drought. To protect and safeguard these genetics, we've picked the most ideal place with fog, cool temperatures, an abundance of rain in southern Oregon to make sure these trees and their genetics don't get lost. Here in southern Oregon, through a program called assisted migration, we're moving these trees north where it is slightly cooler. The fog still remains in effect every day, which these trees have gotten used to for millions of years. And through assisted migration, we're moving them to a climate that's more conducive to the one that they've thrived in for millennia. Here's one of our tags. You know what this tree is? The Barrett stump that we filmed yesterday with the playground built on it. This tree right here is the world's first clone of a 3,000-year-old redwood, and it is that tree. Now this will join several hundred others as a model to the world that yes, we can fix the destruction. We can go back and we can reestablish and rebuild the old growth forest that we've lost.
Kids just love this project when they're planting the little cloned redwoods and big trees. They just have so much fun. They know they can be a part of something bigger, planting, nurturing things instead of destruction. And that's the reason that I pretty much started this thing. I thought, the kids could really show people that this is fun, this is easy.
If we build a model and show the world what's possible, and if we change our thinking to help Mother Nature, to work with Mother Nature, not completely destroy Mother Nature, I think our great-grandchildren and beyond would be grateful that we did. Is this my life's work? Let's plant some more.
All of my heroes set straight. They stare at the ground, they radiate.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that video. That was very informative, and you can visit that website, Moving the Giants, to help out in any way. So there are many people out there trying to do what's best for our plant life and our forests, and I hope you are inspired. So I have some different information about some Redwood Forest fun facts. This is a fun connection. I learned that the Petrified Forest National Park is in Arizona, and I have some information here to read you. Thousands of logs litter a stretch of grassland at Petrified Forest National Park in northeastern Arizona. From far away, the logs might look ordinary, but they contain a surprise. The shiny, multicolored inside of the stumps are made of rock, not wood. How did these turn to stone? It wasn't with the help of a magician. Instead, the transformation was the result of a natural process that took place over millions of years. So I had some fun stuff from the National Geographic website that was talking about how these big, beautiful trees used to be in Arizona. And now it's pretty much a desert. I mean, this happened over millions of years. And they call it now the petrified forest. So I thought that was an interesting fact. I also learned that there's 3 types of redwood trees. There are coast redwoods, giant sequoias, and dawn redwoods. So there's just a majority of these trees there. And some of the most impressive ones are the giant sequoias. So they are so large. And I also learned that they can be up to 300 feet tall, which is taller than the Statue of Liberty. So these trees are pretty majestic. I have another video from National Geographic about a family that was interested in climbing some of the tallest trees in the world. So I thought it was really cool, fun information. So let's watch. Inspirational of a young woman climbing trees and just being interested in nature. Great. Right, I have 5 ways that you can support Redwood State Parks. I will leave the link at the end of the video where you can donate to support the League Parks support work. Of course, it is helpful to actually visit the Redwoods with family and friends. That's supporting the parks as well. Stay informed by bookmarking and visiting this page to sign up for news e-letters. Talk to your friends about the League's work and even join the conversation on their Facebook page. Yes, so a lot of this information is from SaveTheRedwoods.org. So you can visit that site for different ways to help. Next, I have another great video that is in the Humboldt State Park. So let's watch.
The forest that grows here on the north coast of California is the most superlative forest on the planet. The redwoods are the tallest trees in the world. This is a record-breaking forest, and it, as a carbon sink, as a resource in the fight against climate change, is extraordinary. And what is equally mind-boggling is the fact that we almost cut it all down.
The logging of California's giant redwood trees is a big job. They are the men who fell the trees and get the logs out of the woods so that we may have lumber, for houses, for furniture, for the 1,000 uses of wood. Cutting their way into trees that may be as old as our civilization. The redwoods that grow along the coast live to be 2,000 years old. And all in his day's work, over goes the top of this tree. So down they come, some of the world's oldest, biggest, and tallest trees. Trees that grow over 350 feet high. Trees that may be over 20 feet thick at the base. Trees that are so big that more than 20 houses can be made from just one tree.
In an era of climate change, when we know the temperatures are going to be rising, we're going to have changed hydrology around here, and we're going to have changed fog patterns. And if those forests are not restored to health, that means that the old growth groves, as majestic as they are much more vulnerable to threats like fire or erosion.
We don't expect that the extraordinary carbon capacity of the redwood forest is going to fight off the proliferation of carbon in the atmosphere globally. But we can do our part. Knowing that the forests of the world are the critical ingredient in the fight against climate change, both in adaptation because of the habitat that they provide and in mitigation in the carbon that they sequester. Because we know of that global significance of forests, and because we know that we as Californians and we as Americans have taken responsibility for the most superlative forest in the planet, and we have the means and the will and the knowledge to affect its future.
Well, the biggest challenge for us in this park is the fact that we inherited a park that, although its total size is 80,000, 85,000 acres, the majority of that is cutover lands, lands that were harvested during the early industrial timber logging era. Inheriting that landscape presented a number of challenges, including forests that have grown in fairly thick because of the lack of any kind of management that should have occurred. We also have a lot of roads, legacy logging roads that are failing, a lot of culverts that are washing into creeks. In fact, Redwood National Park was established and expanded to implementing studies to make sure that what we do is improving the landscape over there.
When you look at the canopy of the tree, right? Look at the live crowns that are growing down some of these trees. The more live crown you have growing down the tree, the more live branches you have, the more leaves you'll have. The more leaves, the more photosynthesis you'll have. The more photosynthesis, the more food that the tree is producing for itself. A lot of those crowns are pretty short, and that's not really a healthy sign, right? That makes these stands really susceptible to a lot of different environmental stressors like drought or fire.
We have a responsibility to lead by example, to steward this extraordinary forest in a way that it's part of the solution, and to begin to turn the corner, and instead of just trying to slow the gradual degradation of this extraordinary natural system, to begin to grow it back.
All this is just big chunks and dirt and other debris they just shoved off the road to get it out of the way, completely burying the mouth of the creek, so it's totally disconnected. If it kept going at that rate, it's like 1,000 years before these sources start exhausting themselves, and then another few hundred years for the channel to clean itself out. We can probably reduce that to about 100 years before these things really start flushing themselves out. So this was accessed about 15 miles of road that they logged between 1962 and the early 1970s. So they were in and out of here hundreds of loads a day for 10 years. So this road was really well built. Places where they had just ripped the road, there's still compacted dirt under there, and things don't grow very well. When we fully recontour this road bench, now we've got that original topsoil, and trees and plants and stuff take off. They love it. They grow really, really well. Let's say it's 2 acres of landscape once we've removed the road. That 2 acres wasn't growing anything very well to begin with. Now we've just restored 2 growable acres of redwood ground that can now turn back into old growth as opposed to scrubby brush and ferns.
People and the public realize that you cannot just rely on government, especially when it comes to conservation and resource protection, that it demands action and it demands far more innovative and forward-thinking ideas. So because of that, that's how we were able to develop this partnership. Each one of the partners, whether it be state parks, National Park Service, or Save the Redwoods League, could not have done this on their own. Every single area of public lands in the state of California relies on ambassadorship. And you cannot just sit back and wait for government to act, but that there has to be this vast network of ambassadorship and people that love these places. These places only remain protected because the public cares about them.
people don't like to break an egg to make an omelet. So hey, we might kill one old growth tree. Some people can't stomach or can't justify killing one old growth redwood because it's such a limited resource at this point. We also know that redwoods are pretty resilient as a species. So they're pretty resilient to fire and disturbance. I mean, I haven't seen any of these larger trees in the areas we've burned succumb due to fire. But that said, climates are changing, you know, so there's some just precautionary principle stuff going on. And that's why we're starting in these second growth stands, because we know they're not in great shape to begin with. We're trying to do some restoration in there, and then we can more easily use fire in these stands because there are less of the restrictions and concerns that you have in old growth forests. Pretty vigorous, actually, with the resprouting. Seedlings are very sensitive to drought. You know, they don't have deep roots, they're not tapped into reserves, so they're very dependent on the summer fog and the surface moisture in that upper layer of soil. They're very sensitive. So the fact that they're still here, you know, October 8th, is it gives me some optimism that a lot of these might survive into the next year. And once they get a couple growing seasons in, they're going to start putting on some growth, you know. So it's going to be neat to track these things over time and see how much growth they can put on.
I think of the Redwood Forest as kind of a gateway to a broader appreciation of the outdoors. As the president of the organization, I see from our membership, and I'm contacted by so many who have moments from their childhood or their memory that they've spent in the Redwoods with their loved ones, with their family. They've had inspirational, transformational moments in the Redwood Forest that have changed them. It has changed their understanding of the way our natural systems works, has changed their relationship with the beauty of the planet, with their understanding of themselves. They've gained perspective and peace, and a sense of awe of the power and beauty of the world. And in that way, I think that there's an amplifying factor in the Redwoods that connects people to nature in a more tangible way. That makes their impact on all of us that much bigger. We need more of that. The sheer example of a community rolling up its sleeves and saying, we can do better. We can be better stewards. We've taken responsibility for this forest, so we're going to do right by it. And then to see over time the effects of that restoration as the forest health grows, as our air gets cleaner, as our water gets cleaner and more plentiful, as our communities thrive with the public health benefits of being in a healthy forest and watershed. By changing the way we think about this forest and our responsibility to it, it's an amplifier. And people can help just by bringing that sense of stewardship to their own communities and to think about their forest, to think about the impact that they have had in their region as not the end of the story, that we can now turn to a new trajectory and let nature come back.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. It's very inspirational to watch different organizations and people coming together to help save our planet, help save our resources, and something as beautiful and as helpful as beautiful trees in the Redwood Forest. Okay, so I want you to spend some time thinking now, how can you help in the fight to protect our Redwood Forest and our resources? You can even think about maybe even asking your family to plan a trip. Okay, just want you to start thinking about how you can help, things that you can do. We're going to watch one last video. Here we go.
Redwood National Park is a series of state parks and groves located in between Eureka and Crescent City in Northwest California. While an amazing park which encompasses over 45% of the remaining coastal redwoods, This park doesn't get visited as much because it's outside of the normal touristy areas of California. Amy and I made the 5.5-hour drive from San Francisco and spent 36 hours exploring the park. Here's what we did. We're leaving our hotel in Eureka and spending the next 36 hours in Redwood National Park. We got a hotel on the south side of Eureka the night before and then headed out early in the morning to explore the park. It was about a 30-minute drive along the coast to the sign that noted the park entrance. We're now officially entering Redwoods National Park. And then another 10 minutes to the visitor center in the town of Orick. Basically, anytime you're in the park though, keep an eye out for elk, as we saw a bunch as we were driving through in the morning. This is our first stop in the park. It's a visitor center to plan out what we're going to explore today and to get the code to go to Tall Trees Grove. The visitor center is a good first stop in the park, as it's a great way to learn about the area's history and to ask any questions of the rangers, since the park is big and spread out, making it a little bit hard to get to everything. After getting the code from the rangers, we headed out on the 45-minute drive to the Tall Trees Grove trailhead. On the way up, this is the Redwood Creek overlook. It's a great pull-off with some amazing views. On to the Tall Trees Grove. The road to Tall Trees Grove has a locked gate, and so you have to go to the visitor center, check in with them, fill out a permit, and get the code to go through the gate and get access to the trailhead.
Permit is required to come back here. Don't come back here without getting a permit and without getting the numbers to get into the gate. 6.5 miles down a dirt road.
We went slow, and the dirt road was easily passable by a 2-wheel drive car when we went, but be sure to check if you go after a storm. We got to the visitor center about 10 minutes after they opened. I thought there would be no one here. There's already like 5 cars, but we're heading out on the 4-mile trail to Tall Trees Grove. Tall Trees Grove is an awesome trail, easily one of my favorites in the entire park. I have a video just on this trail in the description, so these clips are just the highlights. This is the famous point of interest on this hike. It's a tree that you can walk right through. This is a reverse hike, so it's 800 feet of elevation down and then back up when you're coming back to your car. After about 1.5 miles walking downhill, we finally made it to the Tall Trees Grove loop. The 1-mile loop here is incredible, taking you to some truly massive coastal redwoods, some large ferns, and some moss-covered trees on the other side.
Apparently this tree just came out of the ground. And like splintered. Crazy.
We made it back to the split. Now it's 1.5 miles back to the car. Saying goodbye to the grove. Now we get to hike uphill to the car.
Almost out. Be sure to take advantage of these benches when you get them. It's steep on the way up.
We made it out of Tall Trees Grove, onto the next part of the park. Thanks for letting me out.
You're welcome.
From there, it was about a 35-minute drive to our next stop in the park. Stop number 2 in the park, Lady Bird Johnson Grove. Lady Bird Johnson Grove is one of the park's most popular hiking trails because it's a short, gradual trail with lots of beautiful trees and an easy parking area.
We're heading out. You can go either direction, but we're going to go that way.
The hike is great for families, as well as there's an interpretive guide that you can buy for $1, which tells you all about the area and has different numbers that represent things in the guide. If you're short on time, this is probably the best thing to do in the park. It's only 1.5 miles and you get to see a lot of big trees, but the grove's not as impressive as the grove that we saw earlier this morning.
Amy has been reading the trail guide and she has a fact to share with us.
Redwoods are capable of growing up to 360 feet tall, and they gain most of their height in the first 100 years.
Whoa! Epic redwood fact.
Thanks, Amy.
This is a great area right in the middle of the trail. There's some benches, some information plaques, and some massive trees. A lot of the information here talks about how the redwoods were saved over the last century, and I for one am glad for the work that people have done, as this is an amazing place to explore.
Got another fact for us?
It's very hard to kill a redwood tree. They're very resilient.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that last video, and I hope you were inspired to go out and do your part to help save the redwoods, or save any resources, and make sure you're recycling and thinking about different ways that you can help out. Good job, and see you guys next time.